Braun is a serial entrepreneur. He has started and launched several successful companies in a variety of interesting areas, ranging from wooden play structures for children, outdoor play equipment, all the way into the medical devices arena. He teaches a lot of classes in the business school, both to graduate students, undergraduate students, and our executive education students. Really has his finger on the heartbeat of what people in the business world today need to understand to succeed and grow as they move through their careers. Growth hacking is a really contemporary, very topical subject. Based on some of the correspondence I had with people prior to the webinar, I think that there's a lot of interest and not a lot of knowledge floating around about this topic. And I know you'll leave the session today feeling like you really learned something valuable that you can take forward with you. The way our session will work is that Braun will introduce himself, give a presentation of about 40-45 minutes in length, and then we'll open the floor for questions and answers. If you have questions, you can submit them using the chat feature, which is toward the bottom of your GoToWebinar banner bar that should be running vertically across your screen. Just type your question into the chat box. I'll see it, and when Braun is ready for questions, he'll kind of cue me, and I'll read the questions in the order they've come in, and Braun can address them. If you have a private message from me for some reason during the session, you can also use that chat to send it in, and you can choose to send a message just to the organizers of the meeting. So without further ado, I'm going to let Braun take over, introduce himself, and get started. Braun? Thanks, everybody, for holding with us. I'm having a little trouble with Braun's audio, which was working not too long ago. Let me go ahead and get him set up, and then we'll be right back with you.
The material we're going to be covering today has actually grown out of some of my more recent work at Rutgers, which is really focused on achieving lean innovation. So it's been exploring tool sets like lean startup methodologies, the innovator's method, and really applying those to doing product development the right way. And this growth hacking topic has really been sort of a natural extension of that, because once you've really nailed the product, right, once you've created a product or a service that people want to use, then of course the next challenge is, well, how do I go out and get myself some customers or users, right? How do I grow this business now? And that's really where these growth hacking tools I think can really be of some tremendous value. So as Jenny said, my background here at Rutgers is really as a practitioner, so I'd like to say I'm probably 90% practitioner and about 10% academic. To me, you know, in the business world, academics only make sense if they can help you make better business decisions. So that's what I'm all about, and what my research is about, and what today's topic is about. I hope by the end of it that you'll all be able to make some better business decisions and have a new tool set in your toolbox to allow you to be successful. So. All right, with that, let's get started. So what are we going to be talking about here today? Well, okay, there we go. My screen's now working. So I want to start off talking a bit about the birth of growth hacking. So what specifically is growth hacking? How can I learn to think like a growth hacker? We'll then explore the 4 steps of growth hacker marketing. Step 1 is all about achieving product market fit. Step 2, finding your growth hack. Step 3, going viral. And step 4, closing the loop, and that's all about retention and optimization. Let's get started. So first off, what is a hack? Well, a hack in technology parlance is used to refer to a quick and dirty but effective fix to a problem. So if you hang out in any hacker forums online, you'll see a lot of messaging going back and forth that, hey, I'm looking for a hack for this problem or that problem, and there'll be a lot of ideas being shared, and that's what they're talking about when you hear the word hack. So the phrase growth hacker was first coined by, or is usually attributed to Sean Ellis back in his blog in 2010. And really what growth hacking is all about is learning how to do more with less. And the tools we're going to be covering today have literally been used to create billions and billions of dollars in value using very little resources. And when I say billions and billions of dollars, I mean billions and billions of dollars. So if you think of any hot technology company right now, they all employ growth hackers or teams of growth hackers to grow their businesses. So Dropbox, Zynga, Groupon, Instagram, Uber, Airbnb, right? All these companies are being led, their growth is being led by teams of growth hackers. And really what's happened here is that in the absence of big budgets, startups have essentially learned how to hack the system to build their companies. So we'll be exploring how exactly it is they've done that. Where growth hacking came from is I think this idea, or really the convergence of 2 separate, or what used to be 2 separate processes, and that's product development and marketing. And really what's happened is that these 2 processes are no longer separate. They've sort of converged into one, and that's really the fundamental basis of growth hacking. Growth hacking is really sort of a new cycle. It's a much more fluid and iterative process than the marketing of yesteryear. And a growth hacker doesn't really see marketing as a functional role, but really as something that can be built into the product itself. And those products then get kickstarted, they're shared, they're optimized, and what we'll see is a very iterative way on their way to really massive and rapid growth. So again, the key is that growth hacking really, I think, is a convergence of this marketing and product development. What exactly is growth hacking? Well, I think the easiest way to think about it is to really understand what the goal of growth hacking is. And the end goal of every growth hacker is to build a self-perpetuating marketing machine that reaches millions by itself. I really like that quote from Aaron Ginn. And really what we're looking for here is companies don't want, right, advertising budgets filled with grand openings, big launch parties, press releases, major media coverage, right? These are sort of what we refer to as industrial marketing, or sort of the marketing tools of yesteryear. And why is that? Why don't we want to be spending the money on these launch parties and this major media coverage? And the reason why is that when you really talk to marketers, nobody really knows anything, right? Nobody really knows what works in advertising, right? Even the people in charge. So I think a great example of this is the movie industry, right? I mean, to this day, nobody really knows what makes one movie a hit and another movie a flop. Now that's okay, because movie studios are sort of set up to absorb that risk and absorb those losses, but entrepreneurs are not, right? We don't want to see our our sweat equity fail after years of effort and a lot of long hours. So the idea started to emerge that, look, there's got to be a better way, right? These tools of these old industrial marketing tools, it's impossible for me to tell what's working and what's not working. And I can tell you, I experience this in my business every day. There's the old adage that, I know half of my marketing budget is wasted, I just don't know which half. And, that is very true when you're using the sort of old industrial marketing tools. But in the age of growth hacking, that does not need to be the case anymore. So I think a great example of the first sort of growth hack was Hotmail, which launched back in 1996. It was basically one of the first free webmail services, and one of the first, I think, great examples of a product to sort of go viral. And what had happened is, after the founders had launched Hotmail, and Hotmail was founded by 2 guys, one named Saber Bahita and Jack Smith. And once they had launched it, and they weren't really getting much traction. They had a few users, but they certainly weren't getting that exponential growth they were hoping for. And so what sort of changed everything? Well, what ended up changing everything is they simply went and put a message at the bottom of everyone's screen that said, "Get your free email at Hotmail." Now, this suggestion was made actually by a rather famous venture capitalist named Tim Draper. He was the VC who backed Saber and Jack in Hotmail. And the founders, Saber and Jack, wanted to do billboards and radio ads, and to launch the product to get more users. And Tim said, well, that seems like a really expensive approach for what is a free product. So he said, why don't you just add this little footer to the emails, and we'll see if it can sort of naturally spread that way. And sure enough, after that, their growth was exponential. They were reaching 1 million users within 6 months. And this seems like such a simple idea, but remember, back at the time, it was really kind of revolutionary. Just a few years before Hotmail, we had the launch of Pets.com. Right? Their launch involved a multi-million-dollar, multi-city television outdoor advertising campaign. They did Super Bowl ads. They made Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade appearances. Right? Cosmo.com literally spent hundreds of millions of dollars with TV ads featuring the $6 million man. Both of these companies collapsed in the dot-com bubble. So what they had come up with was really a very simple yet very, very powerful idea. So after Hotmail added that email footer, again, their growth was exponential, right? They reached 1 million users, or 1 million members within 6 months. A few weeks later, membership doubled again. In less than 2 years after launch, Hotmail had grown to nearly 10 million users, and they ended up selling the company to Microsoft for $400 million. Now think about the power of this approach, right? This $400 million brand named Hotmail was built using what was a $300,000 investment from Tim. And it was implemented and executed by people without the slightest bit of marketing experience, right? Neither Saber nor Jack were marketing guys, right? So now $300,000, I mean, $300,000 is what a Hollywood studio or a Fortune 500 company might spend on one decent premiere party or a single television commercial, right? And these guys built a $400 million brand off of what would be the spend on a single television commercial. So, and if you look to Google, Google basically did the same thing with Gmail right after Hotmail. So, so what are the tools that growth hackers use to achieve this? Well, growth hackers only use tools which are 3 things, and this is really key, right? The tools need to be testable, trackable, and scalable, right? So if it's not testable, trackable, and scalable, it's not something you want to try and pursue, all right? It's not going to allow you to essentially growth hack. So things like email, pay-per-click ads, blogs, platform APIs, social media, okay, these are all tools that are testable, they're trackable, and if they work, very, very scalable. So forget concepts like branding and mind share, okay? Growth hackers simply pursue users or customers and growth, right? Again, they're looking to invent and operate self-sustaining and self-propagating engines of growth. That's the goal. Now, thankfully, right, growth hacking is not really some proprietary technical process that's shrouded in secrecy, okay? There's no secrets here to guard. In fact, this is all sort of developed really out in plain view in public conversation and forums. It turns out that growth hacking really, when you get down to it, is much more of a mindset than a toolkit. And I really, again, like that quote from Aaron Jen. It's not really a 1, 2, 3 sequence like sort of the marketing of yesteryear, but again, a much more fluid process. It's sort of a way of, as you'll see as we explore it a little more deeply here, it's really a way of thinking and looking at your business, okay? And the tools you're going to use will vary. And some tools will only work once. Some tools you'll be able to really leverage and scale. But it's really the mindset at the end of the day that ends up, I think, being the killer advantage. So, and this mindset, right, this idea of growth hacking starts far earlier than you think, right? This marketing mindset doesn't begin like sort of traditional marketing begins, a few weeks or months before product launch. They start developing the marketing campaign or the launch campaign. This process actually begins during your product's development and design phase. So that's where we're going to start. By the way, this is a great book. It's called Growth Hacker Marketing. It's written by Ryan Holiday, who's the gentleman behind, he's actually the VP of Marketing for American Apparel. So he built the American Apparel brand. And, he ended up writing this book because he was, surfing around the internet one day and saw that quote that, hey, growth hackers are the new VPs of marketing. And he said, well, wait a minute, I'm a VP of marketing. What the heck is a growth hacker? And so it's a quick read. It's a great book. I strongly recommend you pick it up. But as you explore it, one of the key concepts that emerge is that really growth hacking all begins with achieving product market fit. All right? As Paul Graham says, make something people want. Okay? There's no substitute for that. Now, Paul Graham is the founder of Y Combinator, which is a very prestigious incubator or accelerator, really they call them now, There's a number of, there's Y Combinator in Manhattan. There's also another one called General Assembly. There's a few of these very prestigious sort of accelerators that have launched some, or a string of really great companies. But again, right, making something people want, all right? The best marketing decision you can make is to develop a product or a business that really fulfills a real and compelling need for a real and defined group of people, right? No matter how much tweaking and refining this takes, no matter how long it takes, there is really no substitute for ultimately developing something that people want. And two of the keys to that are experimentation and customer feedback. And that really, is kind of a topic for another webinar. That's really all about sort of lean innovation and using tools like lean startup principles and the innovator's method to make sure you develop a product that fits, right, that resonates with your customers. All right, so that's step one, growth marketing, is achieving product market fit. So how do we go about doing that? Well, the growth hacker helps with this by really sort of analyzing all the different facets of the business. So product market fit ends up being kind of a feeling, right, backed with data and information, okay? And that's key, right? Data and information. So you'll know it. When you achieve product market fit, you'll know it. You'll feel it. You'll be able to tell from your customers that what you are giving them is resonating with them, okay? And you'll see, I mean, we've gone through a lot of design iterations in different businesses, and you'll know when you get it because all of a sudden your customers will start asking you a lot of questions, right? They'll start asking you things like, well, can it do this? Can it do that? How soon could I test it, right? How much does it cost, okay? And they'll literally, right, once you get that alignment, they'll literally start to pull the market. Your customers will start to pull the solution out of you, right? They'll literally they'll lead your product development for you because now all of a sudden you've struck a chord with them, right? You've developed something that they actually want, right? That hopefully solves a real burning problem for them, right? What I like to call scratches that itch, right? It scratches the itch. So achieving product market fit, it can be sort of one aha moment, right? That's what happened with Instagram is when they launched. They actually launched it with a much broader feature set, but they realized that everybody on their software, everybody on their application was simply using the photo sharing feature. So so that was sort of the one aha moment for them. Or, and more often I'd say, it's incremental 1% improvements, right? Now the key is that when it comes to achieving product market fit, everything you're doing has got to be on the table, all right? You've got to do whatever it takes to achieve product market fit. That means potentially changing out people, right? Maybe changing out founders, right? Bringing new people on board, rewriting your product, moving into different product markets, telling customers no or yes, right? Whatever it is that you perhaps don't want to tell them, raising that fourth round of highly dilutive capital, right? To continue to develop the product until you got something that really, right, that really fills a burning need in the marketplace. But it's really, this product market fit is a key ingredient that makes all future success possible. So the trick is to stop thinking about the products you market as static, okay? You don't have to work with what you got, all right? As a marketer, you can work on, or as a growth hacker, I should say, you can work on and improve what it is you've got. And I think the rules have sort of changed. It's no longer the first person to market who wins. It's the first person to achieve product market fit. And we've seen a lot of companies, and Apple has done this repeatedly, right? Apple wasn't the first the iPod wasn't the first MP3 player on the market, but it was one that achieved product market fit, right? That really resonated with its customers. And they've done that over and over again, right? A lot of times Apple's products aren't the first ones on the market, but they're the ones who achieve product market fit and who end up capturing the lion's share of the profits in that industry. So now why is it so again important to achieve PMF or achieve product market fit? Well, the difference is that once you get there, okay, your marketing efforts become like a spark applied to a bed of kindling soaked in gasoline versus the old way of marketing, which is more akin to striking a match and sort of hoping it starts a fire somewhere, right? So the old way of thinking about marketing is, okay, we got this new product, new service, we're gonna launch, right? We're gonna have maybe a launch party, we're gonna run some television ads, some radio ads, some print ads, okay? And really what we're doing is we can't really tell if any of it works. We're just hoping that something, right, we're going to sort of light all these little fires all over the place and hope, right, we're going to strike all these matches and hope that something catches fire. Whereas if you get product market fit and then you start using the growth hacker mentality to launch that product, again, your efforts are going to become like, like applying a match to a bed of kindling soaked in gasoline. So now, what are some tools you can use to help you achieve product market fit? I didn't really have time to review these with you here on today's webinar, but I've put an appendix to the slide deck, and Jenny's going to be more than happy to share this presentation with you after the webinar. And in the appendix, you'll see I've got, in Appendix 1, I've got what I call the toolbox, and there's some tools you can use to help you achieve product market fit there, as well as some other tools that we'll touch on later on. But now look, the key is that you have to realize that product market fit isn't something that happens by chance. It's something that you work for, right? Companies crawl towards this, all right? And you have to be prepared to throw out weeks or even months of work, because the evidence, and that's the key, the evidence supports the decision, right? The feedback you're getting from your customers, your user rates, your sales, right? You can see that, the data is reflecting to you that you have not achieved product market fit yet. And until you do, you've got, again, everything's on the table, right? You got to be willing to change anything you need to get there. The services you end up offering may end up being very fundamentally different from what they were at launch, right? What they were before you had product market fit. Airbnb, I think, is a great example of that really interesting story of, that service has changed a lot since the founders, founded it and basically rented out an air mattress on their floor and served breakfast to folks out in San Francisco. So once you get that product market fit, right? Once they got to the right combination with Airbnb, they realized it, right? They realized that the data started showing them that they had achieved product market fit, and the next step from there is to bring the customers in. So that's step 2, right? Step 2 is all about finding your growth hack, okay? Now that we've achieved product market fit, now that we've developed a solution that really resonates with our customers or with our users, how do we go about bringing more of them in? And that's step 2. So how do you go about finding your growth hack? Well, this is a great quote, I think, from Brian Halligan. To be successful and grow your business and revenues, you must match the way you market your products with the way your prospects learn about and shop for your products, okay? Now, with Growth Hack, what we can do is begin testing until we're confident that we've got a product worth marketing, okay, that we've achieved that product market fit. Only then do we start chasing that sort of, that big bang that kickstarts our engine, all right? And that's really what we're looking to do here in step 2, is to find our sort of Trojan horse that's going to kickstart our growth engine, okay, that's going to kick things off. So a great idea here is just not enough, all right? Just because you come up with a great idea does not mean that people are going to use it. You've got to pull them in, right? You've got to pull them in. So this is really the marketer and growth hacker's job. And I think as an example of this, we can look to, there's a guy named Aaron Swartz who you may or may not have heard of, and he's really sort of a genius hacker. He's been responsible for Read It. But before he did Read It, he invented 2 other services. Back in '99, he started a collaborative encyclopedia. This was before Wikipedia. Okay, so he launched basically what the idea for Wikipedia before Wikipedia came around. He also started another site called watchdog.net, which was very similar to what ended up becoming a wildly popular change.org. Now, both of these were great products. I mean, obviously, they were both great ideas because they both ended up, independent of Aaron, becoming wildly successful websites or wildly successful services. But he was never able to attract that initial group of users, and hence ended up failing. Now, of course, he ended up doing very well with Read It. But the lesson is, no matter how great the idea, you can't expect people to come to you. Okay. Now, the good news here is that we don't need an enormous campaign to start. All right, all we need is an initial boost or shot in the arm to sort of get the ball rolling, right? To be the spark that fuels that fire. So we need to figure out how to catch the attention of our core audience, all right, and literally pull our customers in. So, look, like sort of the marketers of yesteryear, growth hacking still requires pulling your customers in. It's still all about defining who or figuring out who and where your customers are. The difference is, in growth hacking, you seek to do it in a cheap, effective, which means trackable, and a lot of times unique way. And I think there's a great example of this in eBay versus the New York Times here. So let's look at eBay. Back in 2012, eBay, I think, did a really brilliant growth hack. They partnered with a company called GoGo, which basically provides in-flight Wi-Fi. And what they did in partnering is they provided GoGo's customers with free access to eBay.com. So you didn't have to buy the in-flight Wi-Fi. Essentially, eBay kind of paid for it on their behalf, and you could you only had access to eBay.com though. So you could go on and sort of surf around eBay. And they piloted this. They tried it out on Delta and Virgin America flights. And when you think about it, what they really got is a crack at hundreds of thousands of potential customers who are, in most cases, sort of bored and stuck on a plane via somebody else's platform. Now, the brilliant thing is, though, think about how easy it is for eBay to track, right, to track this marketing campaign, to track this growth hack, right? They can track exactly how many people and what revenue, right, those users are generating on their site. So because of this, right, what does eBay need to do now to decide if they want to continue to expand this program, right, if they want to scale it up, right, or should they cancel it? I mean, all they have to do is look at the cost of the program versus the revenues that it's brought in, which are very, very trackable, and then they can very easily scale this program to all the other in-flight Wi-Fi providers. Now compare this growth hack to what the New York Times is doing at the same time. Right, at the same time, the New York Times was running what were very likely very expensive branded content on JetBlue's in-flight TV screens. And this branded content, right, these ads for the New York Times are totally untraceable. Okay, they cannot tell if that ad is generating subscriptions, right, is bringing in more advertisers. And think about the cost of this program compared to the program that eBay was doing. So this is not growth hacking. By the way, neither would ads in the in-flight magazine be considered a growth hack. Okay. So the key here is that you don't need to attract all people, right? You don't need to cast a very wide net when you're figuring out your initial growth hack. You need to catch the right people. And the sort of old mindset in marketing is, look, go out and get everyone you possibly can. Well, the new mindset is, look, let's seek to, as cheaply as we possibly can, attract the early adopters who are really going to be the ones who are going to make or break our product. And then we're going to go with, and then we're going to grow our business with and because of this sort of fanatical, what's hopefully a very fanatical base of early adopters. They're going to grow our company for us. And the paradox here is that the best way to kind of get to the mass market is often to ignore the urge to appeal to the mass market. So again, at the beginning, what we're really seeking to do here is to reach out and capture a group of highly interested, loyal, and what will hopefully become fanatical users, and then grow with and because of them. Now, how do you find the right people? Right? How do you find the right people? Well, the key is, if this isn't immediately obvious to you, then you don't know your product market space well enough to even consider launching. Okay? If you don't know where to find the right people, you are not ready to launch, period. Okay? Now, assuming you know where they're at, how do you target them? Well, again, in the appendix, I put a number of tools that you can, a number of tools there to list kind of a list of growth hacks, right? And again, we don't probably have time to review. Hopefully we'll have time to get into a few of them, but I'm assuming we don't have time to review them on today's webinar. So I put them there for your reference, okay? But look, if you don't know who you should be targeting, you're not ready to launch. You don't understand your product market space well enough now, right? The key is, right, I mean, think about it. If your customers, let's say your users or your customers are geeks, well, then guess what? They're probably reading TechCrunch or Hacker News or Read It, right? They're attending a handful of conferences every year. Likewise, if they're fashionistas, they are regularly probably checking out a handful of fashion blogs, like I don't know, lookbook.nu or Hypebeast, right? It's just thinking about, right, if my customer is blank, or if they're like me and my founders, then they're reading and doing the same things that we do every day. So the key is to figure out, to know who they are, catch their attention, and pull them in. And again, in the appendix is some tools you can use to do that. So, look, the takeaway here is that all the outreach you do at this stage needs to be done with a very specific goal in mind. Okay, usually that goal is driving an initial set of users, right? User signups or customers, right? Your first handful of customers, your first group of users, all right? And again, I kind of think of each one of these gambits as a bit like a Trojan horse. So the key is sort of figuring out what Trojan horse it is that you're going to use to get that initial group of users, customers, clients, whatever it is you're out there searching for. So now, and you know what? And there's, I think, another great example of Uber. Right? Uber did a tremendous job at this. Back one of Uber's initial early launches was at the South by Southwest conference out in Austin. Which, for those of you who aren't familiar with South by Southwest, it's really a conference of art and sort of technology. It attracts a lot of one of the premier, I'd say, technology conferences in the country. And if you think about, right, if you think about it, now why was it so brilliant for Uber to sort of launch there? And what they ended up doing is sort of giving away free rides to people who downloaded the app, and providing transportation services to and from some of the popular parties and things at South by Southwest and some of the concerts. And why is that so brilliant? Well, I mean, think about who is Uber's customer, right? Uber's customer is tech-savvy adults who have disposable income, right? Now, who attends South by Southwest? Well, tech-savvy adults with disposable income. So, Uber, instead of trying to go out and target each of these people in their cities, right, in the cities, and sort of having to cast a very wide and probably expensive net, right, they waited till the one time a year where they were all in the same place, and then took advantage of that to launch their service, right, and develop, again, that initial base of fanatical users. So I think that's, again, a great idea, a great example of a very successful growth hack. And by the way, they kind of got the idea. They got that idea from Twitter, right? Twitter the year before had sort of taken South by Southwest by storm in their product launch. They launched at South by Southwest for, again, the very same reasons, right? Who did they expect would be, right, their first fanatical user base? Well, tech-savvy adults, and that's exactly who was attending South by Southwest. So all right, but now that right, we figured out sort of how to get this initial group of customers, how do we go about now turning this initial group of customers or users into an army of customers? And that's where step 3 comes in, which is all about how do we go viral, right? How do we go viral? So, and I like this quote by Jonah Berger, virality isn't luck, okay? It's not magic, and it's not random. There's a science behind why people talk and share, a recipe, a formula even, okay? And really one of the keys here is to realize that to go viral, you've got to create content worth spreading, right? It's got to provoke a desire in people to spread it. And it also has to be conducive to spreading, right? It has to be easy for them to spread, and there has to be something about it that makes them want to spread it, okay? Now, it helps if you can create something truly remarkable, and we don't really have time to look at this Halstein Manifesto video, but if you get a chance, check out this video. It's on YouTube. This video got 60 million views, again, because I think it was pretty remarkable, right? If you watch it, it really resonates, obviously, with a lot of people, and it was, right, it was something that people wanted to spread, and of course, because it was on YouTube, it was very easy, right, very conducive to spreading. So, so really, to encourage sharing, what you got to do is you need to create powerful incentives to do so, okay? If your product isn't doing, or your service isn't doing that right now, then why would anybody share it, right? I mean, people are busy. Everybody has things to do. And unless there is some powerful incentive for me to share something, why would anybody do it? So the nice thing is if you get this right, if you do this right, the right people, right, your initial group of users will advertise your product for you, and they'll feel like they're the ones getting the great deal. I think a great example of this is Groupon and Living Social really did a wonderful job of this. So look, Groupon and Living Social realized that virality isn't something that comes after the fact, okay? Instead, the product's got to be inherently worth sharing, and you've got to encourage the spreading of it by adding tools and campaigns that enable its virality. So Groupon, right? Groupon did a refer a friend, right? They still have a refer a friend feature where you get $10 every time you refer a friend and they make their first purchase. $10, pretty strong incentive to share, right? Living Social took it actually a step farther. They, with them, if you refer 3 friends and they buy the deal, you get whatever that deal is for free. No dollar limitation. It could be a cruise, it could be a product, a TV, right? Whatever it may be, you get the deal for free. Again, a powerful incentive to share. These things do not make products or services viral, okay? So simply putting a like this on Facebook or post it on Twitter, right? Putting these icons on your web page is not going to make your product or service viral. Remember, you've got to create a powerful incentive to share. Now, the nice thing is that there's certain ways you can actually bake virality into your product, okay? Again, you can't just expect users to become evangelists of your product. You got to provide them with the incentives to evangelize it and the platform for them to do so. Right? And the nice thing is there's a lot of platforms available to us now, right? On social media, right? I mean, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, Read It. I mean, there's just a ton of platforms, a ton of, pinning things, right? So there's just a ton of ways or a ton of platforms that you can use to share. Now you just need to figure out what the incentive is. Well, you got to figure out 2 things, right? What is the right platform for your customers, right? For your users. what's the platform that they're going to be conducive to using, and two, then what is the incentive that I'm going to offer them to encourage them to do so. But the key thing is realizing that, right, virality is not an accident, it's engineered. Okay, it's engineered. Now, once you got the features set up, right, once you figured out what platform you're going to use to enable your virality, what incentives you're going to put in there, right, you don't just set them up and hope it works, right? You've got to figure out how to keep this growth engine going. So to do that, you're going to need to dive deeply into the analytics, okay? You're going to need to just refine until you're getting maximum results, right? And really to do this, you have to sort of stop thinking like a marketer and start thinking like a scientist. And that brings us to step 4, which is what we call closing the loop, which is all about retention and optimization, okay? This is looking into the data, right? Figuring out what's working, what's not, and then optimizing what's working. So, and I love this quote from Steve Wozniak, okay? You need the kind, in this phase, you need the kind of objectivity that makes you forget everything you've heard, clear the table, and do a factual study like a scientist would. Now, wait a minute, you're thinking like a scientist, what, isn't this marketing? Well, no, remember, right, we're results driven. What we care about is customers and users, all right? It's got to be, right, it's got to be traceable, and it's got to be scalable. So the nice thing is that there's a lot of tools out there today, right? There's a lot of analytical tools that make it very clear whether new users from different initiatives are sticking. I mean, there's one metric called conversion rate, right? Conversion rate is simply the rate at which you convert visitors or inquiries into active users and or customers, depending on what type of business or services you've started, right? But there's a lot of different metrics, okay, that you can use to really track the growth, right, to track the results of the different initiatives that you're trying. So the metrics are going to be somewhat relative to what it is you're trying to accomplish. The question, right, one of the key things I have to think about is what drives your economic engine, right? If I could only track one number, right? One number. By the way, this concept of economic engine is from another great book out there called Good to Great, which if you haven't gotten a chance to read it, I really encourage you to. But there's this concept of economic engine, and the economic engine is simply, right, what if we only tracked one thing in this business, right? If we only tracked one thing in our business, what should that one thing be? Okay. Now, here's a few examples. Okay, what Facebook tries to do is they want you, when a new user signs up for Facebook, they want you to get at least 7 friends in the first 10 days, because they know from looking at the data, from analyzing their data, that if you have at least 7 friends in your first 10 days, you are most likely to stay and become an active user of Facebook. All right. For Zynga, it's what they track, what they call D1 users. Right. These are users who come back after the first day. So what does Zynga try and do? They try and set up a lot of incentives to get you to come back to their platform after your first day on it, because they know that right from the data that if you do that, if you come back after the first day, the chances are you'll stay and become a Zynga user. Now, what does Dropbox try and do? Dropbox wants you to try to incentivize you, right, or make it very easy for you to drag at least one file into your Dropbox folder. Okay, not just creating the account. That's not their goal. Right? Their goal is for you to create an account and drag at least one file into your Dropbox folder, again, for the same reason. Right? They know that right from their data, if you do that, chances are you'll continue to be a Dropbox user and you'll really continue to up your usage on the platform. So the key is, right, to figure out what the most important metric for you is, right, for growth, and focus on that. So look, whatever your current state is, right, as Sean says here, whatever your current state is, it can be better, okay? This is a continuous improvement process. So just because you achieve product market fit doesn't mean your idea is flawless, right? The key is to always be tweaking your customer experience and ruthlessly optimizing, right, whatever it is that you're trying to maximize your success. So don't follow the conventional wisdom out there and invest more in sales and marketing. Instead, invest first in further refining your product or service until your users or your customers are just so happy that they can't stop using it. And of course, talking to their friends about it, right? And then if you create some powerful incentives for them to share and give them a platform by which to share, you will grow with and because of this fanatical initial user base. Let's see. So, and there's something else worth mentioning here, right? Don't get obsessed. A lot of traditional marketers get obsessed about getting more leads, right? Instead of focusing on spending more money, right, investing more in sales and marketing to get more leads or more customers, instead focus on getting the most out of the leads you're already generating. And again, I think Uber really does a great job of this too. There's actually an example in Ryan Holiday's book about, he had signed up for Uber. I think he was at Southwest Conference and initially signed up for Uber, but he never really used the service after that until he was traveling overseas, and he was stuck, and he had gotten an email from Uber saying, hey, take a ride on us, right? So he's overseas, he's sort of stuck at a conference, can't find a car out, and sure enough, right, he gets an email in his inbox just at that very time and says, hey, let me use it. And of course, it ends up being a seamless and sort of wonderful experience for him. And now when he's back in the U.S., right, whenever he's stuck somewhere, he just loads up the Uber app. Right? That was Uber realizing that, look, instead of going out and trying to just collect more and more users, right, let's really focus in on getting the most out of the users we have. Because he had signed up for the service, he just wasn't an active user, right? He had sort of fallen through, right? They didn't catch him in their net on the first go-around. But instead of just throwing that net out there and trying to catch more and more, getting more and more users, Uber was figuring out how to get the most out of the users they had. So, look, growth hacking is all about maximizing your return on investment, okay? And remember, most of the time, a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush, okay? So if you've got one user today, well, that's worth, or you've got one customer currently, that's worth probably two future customers. So figure out how to maximize your return on whatever users or customers it is you have right now. Now, thanks to sort of this mentality of growth hacking, we know that anything that gets customers in can be considered marketing. So start thinking about how you can drive your sales, right? What is your Trojan horse going to be, okay? All right, so here's a quick process overview, right? Here's the recipe, all right? Merge marketing into your product development, right? Remember, growth hacking starts early, right? As you're designing your product or service, start thinking about what features you can incorporate in there that will attract your initial group of users and enable that virality later on, right, in phase 3. Kick off growth with early adopters, right? Figure out who the early users of your product are going to be, right? Who does your product or service most appeal to, and how can you target that group of users, right, or that group of customers? So kick it off growth with early adopters, add viral elements, okay? Remember, powerful incentives to share and the platform to share them on, all right? And then just relentlessly repeat these cycles, always guided by the data, right? Keeping an eye towards optimization. Remember, right, at the end of the day, I think growth hacking is really more of a mindset than a toolkit, although I've certainly given you some tools in the appendices for you to use too. But I hope if you leave this webinar with one thing today, it's a better sense of what that growth hacking mindset is. And I put a little founders beware here, okay? And I think this is a great quote by Peter Thiel, right? Most businesses get 0 distribution channels to work. Poor distribution, not product, is the #1 cause of failure. Okay? Remember, just about every customer I've run, or every company I've run into that's failed, they all had product. Right? They all had a product or service. That wasn't the problem. What they didn't have was customers. Right? So use this growth hacker mentality to figure out how to get your customers. Right? And of course, make sure you've got a product or service that really resonates with them. Right? Remember, there's no substitute for achieving that product market fit either. So as the great Steve Jobs said, I wish you all to stay hungry and stay foolish on your journey out there. And I think at this point we can open it up to any questions.
Thank you, Bron. I know that everybody enjoyed that. I've heard bits of this before, and I enjoy it every time I hear it as well, so thank you. We did have a couple of questions come in. I'm going to read them in order, and then we can open the floor for any other questions. Everybody on the phone, you can continue to just send your questions in via the chat. And I think that we have time to take a couple more questions beyond the ones that have come in already. First question that we had was, do I need to be a computer programmer to be a growth hacker? And Bron, I'll let you answer that. I think you talked about how you don't need to be a marketer to be a growth hacker necessarily, but
yeah, no, absolutely. You know, and it's a great question. I mean, I think traditional marketers sort of tend to think of themselves more as artists, I think, than anything. You know, very creative types. Growth hackers really span the spectrum from the ones that I've met. They're sort of a combination a lot of times of a data scientist meets sort of design fiend meets traditional marketer, and backgrounds really vary between graphic designers. There's certainly some programmers that are growth hackers, but the short answer is no. Okay, you do not need to be a computer programmer to be a growth hacker. You just need to recognize what the objectives are, right, and follow that 4-step process. Right, you can lean on if you don't have the technical capabilities, there's plenty of resources out there for you to lean on that do. The key is figuring out, right, it still comes down just like to traditional marketing, figuring out who and where your customers are. Growth hacking is just all about using cost-effective means of acquiring those customers.
Thank you. The next question that we had come in, I think you touched on this, is a question, are there any other books you would recommend on this topic? Any supplemental readings or additional resources?
Sure. So actually, in the appendix, I've also included a list of blogs and additional online resources for you guys. So there's some great blogs and some great forums that you can follow if you're interested in learning more about growth hacking. There's a great book called Traction, which is a startup's guide to getting customers. It's written by a gentleman named Gabriel Weinberg, and Traction is really, along with the Ryan Holiday book, is a great read.
Okay, thank you. Just taking a look through the chat scrolls to see if there are any other questions. One other question that came in was, do you have any predictions about the future of growth hacking and what might evolve next?
Well, I have one prediction, I guess, which is I think Jet.com is going to fail. So for those of you who've been following it all, Jet.com launched, they raised hundreds of millions of dollars of venture capital before ever even launching, and they're trying essentially to go head on with Amazon.com, and I think that is just destined for failure. What they're trying to orchestrate and execute is incredibly complex, and we've seen this over and over again. These companies that have these huge valuations, they've raised tons of money and they've never shipped one product yet. And so I'm sort of interested to follow Jet.com, but I don't know. My gut says that one's not going to end well. As far as the future of growth hacking, I think there's still many chapters to be written. So the tools, this all changes so fast, right? All the different platforms that are emerging, right? Social media and the way we communicate is still, I think, and the way media is shifting, right? The types of media that people pay attention to and how they consume that media. All these fronts are just changing so quickly that I think there is a lot of chapters to still be written. But the fundamental principles of getting out there and using tools that are testable, trackable, and scalable, right? To identify your initial core user base and sort of build your company with and because of those customers, focusing on getting the product market fit right. Right, I think those core principles won't go away, but I think the tools we use to achieve them will be ever evolving.
Okay, thank you. Those were, I think, all the questions that came in. I'm taking another look. Any other questions from anybody out there? All right, well, thank you very much, Chris. Thank you very much for participating with us today. I hope that you feel that your time was well spent and that you learned something to maybe apply immediately, maybe to think about for a little bit longer and figure out how this might apply in your real life. The slide that you're seeing now is just a little bit of information about a program we run that helps people who are involved in the business world, as Braun said, really make good decisions, be well-educated, well-informed, and learn the vocabulary that you need to work with the people, either inside or out of your organization, as you do make decisions and try to move forward. It's one of several programs that we offer here at the Business School Executive Education Department, and maybe you'd like to join us and learn a little bit more so that you can continue to be successful in your endeavors. We are offering the program coming up in two formats. One is a week-long accelerated format here in New Brunswick, the week of October 19th. The second one is a 13-week convenient, not unvenient, as it says on your screen. I apologize for that. Online format, which is totally self-paced, starting September 16th. If you have any questions at all, you can contact me. My contact information is at the bottom. And we are offering a 10% discount for everyone who attended today to attend our upcoming Mini-MBAs. So please feel free to contact me if you have any questions or concerns or comments or suggestions to share. I will send out some follow-up materials, including a PDF of Braun's presentation in the next day or two. And I'll hope that we continue to stay in touch and you'll stay engaged with Rutgers Executive Education. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.